electric.
Good morning everyone, welcome back to the EV Puzzle for another video about my electric journey. Today, well, it's cold and wet outside, so given all that water, I thought I would talk about our hot water cylinder, the new Mixergy tank that we had installed in August. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, there's about 2,500 of you that do, then I went out on Twitter a couple of days after getting the hot water tank saying that I was disappointed with it. So I've waited a couple of months, I've learned how the tank works, I've given it a chance, and I've also given Mixergy a chance. I had a good productive conversation with their CEO Peter to talk about my concerns, and yeah, they're still concerns, and yes, I am still slightly disappointed with the tank despite those conversations, despite getting used to it. So this video is to talk about the joy that I'm actually happy with the Mixergy tank and why I'd recommend it, how it works, the savings that I'm getting, all those sort of things, the positivity, but equally the balance, the things that I'm not happy about, the things that Mixergy have said, yeah, okay, perhaps they could be better, perhaps we'll work on that. Now, whether I actually get to see my tank and my implementation, the version I have, improve over time, I'm not sure. That will be a good telling of what the support from Mixergy is like and what they feel about their customers, whether they're going to find issues, correct them, and let customers have updates to improve the system that they have. Now, being a hot water tank and not just an electronic device, I do wonder how much they can actually do. But it's important for me to share my journey because I was disappointed not just because there were issues that I wasn't happy with. I was disappointed because I didn't expect them. And if I'd had the opportunity to see this video before I bought it, then I think I would have been more happy because I would have had different expectations of what I was getting. And that's what I want to do today. I want to share the information so that anyone considering a Mixergy tank understands how good it is, but understands the weaknesses with the configuration and some of the options that you have with the tank. Okay, where do we start then? Well, I suppose with what I purchased. I purchased a 150 litre Mixergy tank. It's a direct hot water cylinder, and I only use the immersion, the electric power, to heat the hot water. So I have not connected the indirect heating capability to my oil boiler because the oil boiler is going to disappear. So I now have no connection to the boiler for hot water. What I do have though is the PV diverter. I chose to buy the PV diverter switch that enables the Mixergy tank to work with third-party solar diverters. Now, my journey was I had an original hot water tank and we used to heat it from the boiler with oil, and we had the opportunity to heat it from the immersion if we wanted to using electricity, but we didn't tend to do that. When we went solar and we bought the Mixergy Eddi device, then our hot water situation improved. What we noticed was we were using less paid for electricity to heat the hot water. Most of it was coming from solar, but equally the amount of hot water we had was greater because every time you ran the hot water tank and reduced what was in the tank, then the solar power excess would reheat the hot water. So you're constantly reducing the temperature and then solar would re-raise it. So more of the time we had really hot water, apart from winter, of course. In winter, without the solar, without that extra excess energy, then we're typically heating hot water from cheap rate energy from the Octopus Go tariff in the first thing in the morning, and maybe we'll have a boost if we have an opportunity with solar or later in the day, but typically it's just once a day. Now with the traditional tank, what happens is you're heating the hot water and the hot water temperature is rising until it reaches its maximum. For us, that's about 52 degrees. And then as you use it, it's refilling with cold water and the temperature is coming down. So gradually throughout the day, the hot water is getting cooler and cooler and cooler. Now with the solar diverter, when you've got excess solar, obviously it's reheating back up again, and that's what I was saying, it's been a really good thing. But the Mixergy tank works differently. So let's get on with the positivity. I have even better, even more hot water, and it's a great improvement to our hot water solution that we have in the house. That's the key reason why I would recommend a Mixergy tank, because it's better, it's a better solution. That's regardless of the energy savings. So let's talk about how the Mixergy tank really works. Now, I don't really understand all of the technicalities of exactly how it works, but my interpretation is it's like having a baffle. It's like having two tanks in there, expandable and contractible tanks, one for hot water, one for cold water. The two don't mix. So unlike a hot water cylinder where you use a little bit of hot water and then cold comes in and refills the tank, which dilutes the temperature down, the Mixergy tank doesn't use a little bit of hot water. The hot water part of the tank contracts and the cold water goes into the other part of the tank and that expands. So you've got more cold water, less hot water, but they're not mixing. The temperature is not reducing. The only time that the two mix is when it's increasing the amount of water that wants to go into the hot water section and it wants to heat it. So while heating it, it's increasing the capacity of the hot water and reducing the capacity of the cold water. Now I hope that makes sense. Let me give you a prime example of how it might work. Our daughter just a couple of weeks ago ran a lovely hot shower for herself and used all of our hot water. I wanted to do the washing up, so I needed hot water at around 50 degrees C. With our old traditional hot water tank, I'd have been scuppered. I'd had no hot water. I would have had to reheat the hot water tank. All of it to get to 50 degrees. So it's the whole tank. Typically what I would end up doing is saying I've got lukewarm water, let's boil a pan on the hob and then we'll mix that in the sink, and that is just enough a compromise to do the washing up. That's typically what would happen. With the Mixergy tank it's different. So she's used all the hot water, it's all gone, I've only got lukewarm water left. But the Mixergy tank gives you the ability to boost. So if I click the boost button, or if I just turn the boost on my Eddi, if I heat the hot water at all, it only takes a few minutes before some of the hot water is at 50 degrees. And then that tank starts to expand. So what I've found is that just within a few minutes, I can start running the hot water, because the hot water comes off the top of the tank, the hot water is at the top of the tank, and the immersion heater is at the top of the tank. So while I'm heating it, I can start running the hot water off. Not quite like a combi boiler, it's not quite instant, but with a few minute delay, it actually works. So within a couple of minutes, I can have hot water that I can run off and do my washing up. It probably is between 5 and 10 minutes to get an adequate 10% of hot water. I'd probably say less than 10. It is more like the 5. So it's a very good system. I don't have to wait for ages. I don't have to use the energy to heat the entire tank. I just heat what I need and then I can use it. So it's a really good solution. It's really smart that you're only using the hot water that you want to. And as you use the hot water, you're not diluting it with the cold. It seems like common sense, doesn't it? Why on earth do all the old tanks dilute the water so you don't have hot water, apart from the very first moment that the tank is fully hot, and then it just gets cooler and cooler and cooler? That encourages you to heat your hot water even hotter, like to 70 degrees, which is scalding hot, and then obviously you'll throughout the day have decent level hot water later on. The Mixergy tank gets rid of that. You heat your hot water to the temperature you want and it stays around that. You know, it loses a few degrees during the day, but your hot water is hot all day. Even over to the next day, you can still have really good hot water. We heat our hot water on the Mixergy tank up to about 54, maybe even 56 degrees as an absolute max. And after using all the hot water that we want for the day, the next morning, the hot water will still be about 47, 48 degrees. So it only takes a real small boost of energy to boost that hot water back to 50, 52 degrees, ready for doing the washing up and having a shower and all those wonderful things. Right, what else does the Mixergy tank do? Well, the Mixergy tank is a digital tank, so I can see the temperature of the tank, the temperature of the cold section, the temperature of the hot section online, and you can see it on the screen now. That's what I get to see. Because it knows how much hot water is in there and it can measure that and measure the reduction and the increase throughout the day. It knows how much hot water you've used, not in terms of litres flowing through a pipe, but in terms of percentages of the tank that have reduced. So the amount of temperature that has reduced in the tank throughout the day. So it's giving you a measurement of how much hot water you're using. And you can see that for the day, you can see it in a graph, you can see it for the month. Now, seeing this information is great because we want information, we want more data, but practically it's really helpful because each time you do something with your hot water, whether it's me have a shower, our daughter have a bath, me doing the washing up, If those things are done separately, I can see exactly what percentage of the tank has been used for that task. So it helps you be more economical. It helps you think, well, why am I using 8% of the tank for a shower, but our daughter's using 30%? What is going on? Now, I don't need to know all the washing details, but for goodness sake, 8% and 30%, something wrong is happening there. Okay, she's got long hair and has to have a wash. But it means that I can say, do you realise how much hot water you're using? I can talk to her and encourage her to use less. The thing that seems to have worked is changing it from how much hot water she's using to that much energy is the equivalent to 2 to 3 weeks of her electric bike being charged. How would she feel if she had to pedal without electric power for 2 to 3 weeks? That's what she's wasting every time she has a shower, compared to if she was more economical. So seeing the data, seeing the percentages of water you're using is a really helpful thing. That does bring savings. Now, on to the savings. So the first thing with the savings is that you don't need such a large hot water tank. Why is that? Well, quite simply because it's really easy to reheat and you don't have to heat the whole tank. So because of that, you can get away with a smaller tank. So I've gone from 170 litres down to 150 litres, so that's just over a 10% reduction. And in my first month of usage, that's what I saw, a 10% reduction in energy use. Now, I was disappointed with that, and that's my first disappointment, because my expectation was I had a 16-year-old tank. I thought the insulation on that old tank that I was getting rid of would be worse. I thought the lime scale, because we're in a hard water area here, would have affected the efficiency of the immersion heater. I was expecting greater savings, but I didn't get them. What I got was exactly like for like heating performance of the water, less than 10% of the tank size. So initially, I was disappointed, and that's what I wanted to say. My hot water cylinder was actually quite an effective, efficient hot water cylinder. The insulation on it wasn't too bad. Well, I say that, but on the top of a hot water cylinder, we always leave old blankets, old sheets, old towels, and they're typically for drying the dog. Now, I left them on top of the hot water cylinder before to help add insulation, because I noticed those towels were lovely and warm all the time. So heating the hot water, some heat was being lost and going into those towels. Now, with the Mixergy tank, I've done exactly the same. I put all those old towels on top of the hot water tank. They're not getting warm. So there must be some savings there on the insulation side, but I'm not seeing it yet in the data. So although I'm saying the insulation's the same on an old tank, well, actually practically on what I touch on the outside of the tank, the outside's not as warm, so it does appear to be making some savings. So I'm not quite sure what's actually going on there with the savings data looking like just 10%, but actually practically and in real terms, it does appear to be insulating the hot water better. So the other thing was I was expecting more savings than the 10% for other reasons as well, and the smart reasons. And we'll get on to why I'm disappointed with the saving level things in just a moment. So let's stay positive. I think the Mixergy tank is just better technology. So if you are thinking of buying a hot water tank to replace an old one that you've got, or you're building a new house, or you need a new hot water tank for some reason, then why not go for the Mixergy tank? The technology is just better. The amount of hot water you have is better. Seeing the data is better. Everything about it is a better solution. It's also a great British startup company. They don't have many employees. I think they're somewhere between 20 and 40 employees at the moment, and it's a growing company. But everyone I've spoken to at Mixergy has been helpful, everyone has been friendly, and the support I've got has been excellent. Now, I did have a few problems with how to submit a support call and whether people would pick it up, but once I found the right route to actually ask questions on support, then they're extremely helpful and I've got answers very quickly. So Mixergy are a great company, the product's a great company, you're going to make savings. So yes, it's a little bit more expensive than a normal hot water tank, but it is worth it in my opinion. And that's what I want to get across, that positivity. I honestly believe, despite my reservations and disappointments with the product, I would still go back and do it again. Now, I purchased it with the PV diverter switch, so that's to enable third-party diverters to work. Now, you could buy Mixergy's own PV diverter itself, and therefore not need to use an Eddi or Immersun or a Solic 200 or whatever your diverter might be. But I decided that the Mixergy Eddi is a better diverter. The functionality is better, the scheduling's better, the data's better. I like the company, I'm used to it. I wanted to continue using the Eddi product. I didn't see any benefit in using the Mixergy one. So that's what I did. I bought their switch that enabled me to use it, and we installed it. And that's where the first level of disappointment really comes from, because I feel really sad to say this, but the moment you install that third-party diverter switch, the tank becomes a dumb analog tank. It's not a digital tank anymore, and you lose too much functionality. Now, my disappointment was because the installer that I purchased it from and Mixergy in their online documentation don't really describe that well enough. They don't honestly tell you what's going to happen if you buy that diverter switch. And that's what I'm disappointed with. I'm also disappointed with the actual technology of that switch that they're using. So let's get into some detail. How does it actually work? Well, here's the switch for Mixergy, and you can see a white wire and a black wire. So from our electricity in the house, we have two inputs to the Mixergy tank. One's the white wire, one's the black wire, but it's the same electricity from the house, and it goes to the same immersion heater. The black wire goes via the Eddi, the white wire just comes straight from the house. Now, the issue here is with the white wire, it goes through their logic and their control boards and all of their AI, and you get all of the intelligence and you get a digital tank. Through the black wire, it goes straight to the immersion heater and bypasses everything. So the Mixergy app, when it says not heating, I could still be heating using my Eddi device and heating the hot water, and it just tells me it's not heating. It can't even detect that it's on heating through that black wire. So there's no energy monitoring. No energy monitoring means no graphs. So I only get to see that through the Eddi device. So I don't see how much energy I've used over time. That's only if you use the white wire, if you use the manual boosting on the remote control, or you use the boost in the app, or the timed schedule, because you've got all those functions with Mixergy. Then you'll get to see the Mixergy energy data that you've used, not your third-party diverter. Now, data and what you see and those sort of things are one issue, and some people are interested in that and some people aren't, but it gets worse than that, I'm afraid, because with the Mixergy tank, when it's heating via the white wire, then digitally you've set my temperature of the tank is, say, 54 degrees, and once it reaches it, it will stop and cut out. Because it's monitoring everything that happens. With the PV diverter switch that I have, it doesn't. It just keeps heating and heating and heating, and it doesn't turn off at the threshold that you've set. It's a manual analog tank at that point. You actually have to open the little door, the little cupboard here, onto the immersion heater, and where the little brass dial is for turning up or down the temperature, and it says do not touch. In the manual it says do not adjust this. It comes set at about 75 degrees, and that's why it just keeps heating and heating and heating. So you do physically have to turn it down. That's too hot, it will scald you. So I had to turn it down to a level where it was between 50 and 60 degrees. And it's really hard to actually turn it down to the right level, because that tiny little screw has a plus and minus 3 degree impact of change. So you can turn it to one level and you think you've got it right, but it could be 3 degrees less, or it could be 3 degrees more. So it's not very accurate. You can start to tell where I've got disappointment. I can't see it's working, I can't see it's on, I can't see the data, and I've got this manual bloody control when it's supposed to be a digital tank. I'm quite rightly disappointed. And when I talked to Mixergy about it, he did sort of say, yeah, it's not the best design. And he started to talk about they didn't want to use more chips, and they didn't want to increase the cost of the tank anymore by adding more logic on the other side. And I sort of disagree with that quite a lot, because I've paid extra for the PV diverter switch. I've paid extra for that, and yet it's taken functionality away. Why can't they add the extra functionality and the extra chips and the extra monitoring to that optional extra that they're selling me, and just increase the price of that? It won't affect the increased price to other people, but it will to those that want that PV diverter switch. If I'm going to spend extra to have something, I don't want to have less functionality. So I think it's wrong. And I described to Peter to say it feels like it's a bolt-on afterthought. It doesn't feel like an integrated solution. Now, I know that's quite negative towards them, but it's just how it is and how it feels. It does not feel like an integrated solution to the product, and it feels really wrong to have less functionality and to have customers using an analog style tank when that's not what the Mixergy product is. So I think that third-party diverter switch that they sell as an optional extra actually degrades the image of their brand and the product, and I think it's a poor implementation, and they really should revisit that and bring back all of the functionality that's missing. That should be available. There's no reason why it shouldn't. I just don't understand. If you were designing it from scratch, would you design it specifically that way to do it? And that's why I describe it as a bolt-on afterthought. It's almost like a third-party product they've acquired somewhere and just bolted on, and sort of works, sort of doesn't, but that'll do. And that's just not good enough. And Mixergy need to do better. So that's where my disappointment comes from. Now it gets worse, I'm afraid, because that manual thermostat that you have to change on the immersion, it actually says in the warranty conditions for the tank that you are not allowed to use the tank over 65 degrees, otherwise that will invalidate your warranty. But they deliver it set to 75. So the warranty terms are invalid from the moment you get the tank. If you're using the third-party diverter tank, that's not right. The manual says one thing, or the version that they sent to me says one thing, and then support says something else. You're not allowed to open the cover and change the thermostat, because the idea is the tank responds digitally, so you don't need to change that thermostat inside the box. That's only for like the catch-all. That's only if there's a fault. You know, it's there as a maximum temperature it'll ever get to. But if you use the third-party diverter switch for something like my Mixergy Eddi, you have to use that screw. You have to change it. So I've, as I said, changed that down to around 56 degrees. What I found interesting about setting that manually is you still have to consider and set the digital temperature on the tank, because there's some logic there somewhere that's doing the mixing of the cold water to the hot when it's heating the tank. And that's where I've also had a problem with the third-party diverter switch. It gets to about 85–90% full, so it's 80 to 90% of hot water at temperature, and then stops because the temperature reaches the manual thermostat's cutout. So it stops heating. The Eddi stops heating anymore because the manual thermostat has cut out. But I've still got 15% of hot water that I want to add excess solar into the tank, but I can't because that manual switch has cut out. So all I need to do is turn up the manual thermostat and the Eddi will re-kick in. But then I've got hot water hotter than I really want. So that process of mixing it and getting to 100% doesn't work perfectly. And sometimes I find I have to wait nearly an hour to get that full tank of hot water. You somehow have to wait for the temperature to reduce in the tank, and then the manual thermostat will click off again, then the Eddi will reboost, and that second or third boost that you get heating the hot water will fill it to 100%. So the third-party diverter switch and the excess solar that you're putting through a diverter doesn't quite work perfectly. It doesn't heat continuously all the way through to 100%. There's that stopping point. And if you get that around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon as the sun's finishing, then any excess solar you've got at the end of the day is wasted and you can't use it. So it's not perfect. Little bit of disappointment again. But for me, the big thing that I'm disappointed with is grid assist. So let's just quickly mention what grid assist is. Grid assist is, you know how all these companies that have storage batteries and Mixergy Zappy chargers and now hot water tanks with Mixergy. So they've got the ability to online connect them, and they've got the ability to connect to the grid and basically receive frequency, what is it? Frequency changes, frequency requests for change. So you've got demand response. The grid has too much energy and it wants you to use more, so it likes the idea of being able to switch devices on remotely to absorb the extra energy. And the same for when there isn't enough energy and they are thinking about turning on another power station. Instead of doing that, then if you can turn some devices off and reschedule things for later, then you can save using that extra power. So helping the grid with demand response is a really good thing. It's a really positive thing. Now, frequency response is slightly different because you're maintaining the frequency on the actual grid rather than needing demand items to go on or off. But anyway, the complexities of what demand response is and how it works, I'm not an expert on, look that up separately. All I know is these remote controls of your devices earn the company money. So companies like Mixergy and Eddi and Tesla Powerwalls, etc., they will connect through a third party or through their own company to the grid and receive these response requests to impact what's going on the grid. And if they provide those response requests, then they get paid for it. Now, if that's the equivalent of saving to build a power station, we are talking huge amounts of money. So in the future, these things are going to be worth a lot of money. And that's why it's a good thing, because it's helping the grid, it's an extra business, it's making the grid more flexible, it's making it greener. It's a really good thing if it doesn't impact you. But the thing is, it's my device, it's my battery, it's my car, it's my hot water cylinder. I paid for it. So why should the other companies like Mixergy get to use it as if they want to for these demand response things and get paid for it and get a profit out of it and give me nothing? That doesn't sound fair. It should be a collaboration. It's my product. I spent £2,200 on this Mixergy tank. So why should they use it for free and get profit for free? It just seems as though some companies like Mixergy in this example think it's still their tank and think they have the right to use these tanks in a network for their benefit and their profit. But it's not theirs, it's mine. So why aren't they offering me a benefit? Now, whether that's a financial benefit or whether that's a functionality benefit, there should be some benefit to me, because I might decide to go with the Mixergy solution, the Eddi, and I might decide to sign up to a scheme that they have for demand response because what they're offering is better than what Mixergy are. All of that potential might come in the future. So I'm unhappy with the way Mixergy implement grid response because they're not offering anything back to the customer. In fact, it's a lot worse than that. They're doing a really hard sell. They're doing a really hard push on the grid assist, and I don't like it. I don't like the feel of it. I don't like the pressure of it, and I don't like how it's being, shall we say, sold. And I want to talk about some of those things and explain why I'm unhappy. The terms and conditions say that British Gas, Centrica, they're the partner that Mixergy use, are entitled to keep and use your data if you decide to turn off grid assist. But I never decided to turn it on in the first place. I never agreed to any terms and conditions for them to have my data and to use it. And yet it comes pre-configured, it comes with the option of grid assist turned on. You don't sign up, it's already on. So by the terms and conditions saying that they're allowed to use my data afterwards, British Gas have my data and are allowed to use it according to their terms, and I have not signed an agreement allowing it. I don't know about data protection, I don't know about all the details, but this is wrong. They should not be allowed to have my data without my permission. They should not be allowed to use my data without my permission. And I don't like the hard sell of turning it on by default, expecting all customers to donate their systems to let Mixergy have extra profit. And this applies to any other company that's doing this sort of grid assist. I'm not just targeting Mixergy here, apart from I am, because this video is about the Mixergy tank. So I really don't like the push on it being by default. Now the push gets worse because there's a switch on the app where you can turn grid assist off, and you think that's all right. If I can turn it on or off and be included or not whenever I like, then that's a good thing. But when you click the off to turn grid assist off, it says you can't do it via the app. So why implement it in the app in the first place? They've deliberately decided to change the functionality and prevent you from turning grid assist off. You have to call their support line to do it. So it's a deliberate attempt to make it more awkward, to make it more difficult, to prevent you from doing it, to discourage you from doing it. That's just really, really wrong. So no, I don't agree with that and I don't like it. I don't like the push. Now, the push gets even worse because they're trying to also sell you a aftercare service for the tank, and that's for servicing. Are you aware that your hot water cylinder is not covered by warranty? The warranty is invalidated if you don't have it serviced every year. So how many people have their hot water cylinders serviced by a plumber every year? They also state, this is Mixergy, that you have to have it documented and the plumber has to provide the right documentation and you have to submit it to Mixergy to keep that warranty valid. Yeah, so again, deliberately making it awkward, deliberately telling you you've got to have the tank serviced at a cost of probably £100, £150 a year to keep that warranty valid. Oh, but by the way, we offer a aftercare plan, which is only $49.99 or whatever the price is. And that means that your warranty will be validated, and you don't have to have an engineer out or a plumber out to have it actually serviced. We'll do the monitoring online. So hang on a minute. So they're going to offer you, for half the price of a service of the boiler, a care service, which basically means your tank's online and connected. They'll monitor it, and if something goes wrong, they'll initiate something to deal with it. Maybe, but that validates your warranty. So a service isn't actually required. They're confirming that a service, an inspection of the tank physically, is not actually required, but they demand it to keep your warranty valid unless you have their aftercare plan. So I really don't like this, because what they're effectively doing is bullying you, saying your warranty is invalid unless you take out our care plan, and that's the only way to validate it. Now, that's not the only way, but they're making the other way so awkward and so unrealistic, because people don't have their hot water tanks serviced annually. It just seems, again, too much pressure, too much design. You must have our grid assist on, because, by the way, their aftercare plan only works with grid assist on. Now, why is that? And what are we really talking about here? This tank is online. It is online all the time to Mixergy. So they're probably monitoring it anyway, but they want you to pay extra for that monitoring. Maybe what they're saying is, we monitor it, and if something goes wrong, we ignore it. Unless you've got our aftercare plan, and then we'll actually action it. What are they talking about? The detail's not in there. They don't talk about this. All they talk about is the pressure sales about your warranty is invalid, and this is cheaper than having it serviced every year. So they're trying to say it's a cost saving, and they're trying to bully you into pressuring you to have this extra insurance product. Now, I've got to say, our company's really learning from the banking scandals that we've had about mis-selling insurance products and bank account products and all those sort of things. Mis-selling by not giving the right information is not a good thing, because it leads to lawsuits and it leads to you losing a lot of money. So depending on what this pressure sales is like, and depending on what they're actually telling you you need their aftercare plan for, it better be really, really good and really accurate. And it better be in the customer's interest. Otherwise, they're open to mis-selling. So I just don't like the whole feel of it. The whole feel is too biased towards, we're trying to sell after products. We're trying to sell extra bolt-ons, and we're trying to pressure you into doing it and convince you that you ought to be doing it because your warranty is invalid if you don't. So the whole feel of it is not good. The whole feel of the grid assist, which is a positive thing, but because they're pushing it so hard, becomes a bad thing. Now, I asked Peter, I said, why is that? Why is there this great feel about Mixergy and the family and the product and the support, and then there's such a hard pressure sell? I said to him, it feels to me like your business part of British Gas are handling all that side, the grid assist, and they're doing the hard pressure sell, like you'd expect from British Gas. You'd expect no less. But they're not being friendly like you start to feel Mixergy. It's like there's two parts to the company, and the Mixergy side is one and this grid assist is another. But he said, no, it's not. It's them. It's Mixergy. And when I asked, well, why are they pressure selling it so much? He didn't really have an answer for it, other than perhaps they weren't being as open about the detail about it. So again, I was disappointed, because it seems to be by design, and it seems to be Mixergy are designing all of these things to deliberately keep grid assist. Now, when you look online at the history of Pete, especially the CEO of the company, he's got a background in energy storage design. I think he was doing that at university. So clearly the energy storage side of it is quite important to him, and that's quite a powerful thing. So maybe that's to do with it. Maybe it's his background is about energy storage, and that's why there's a big push. But I'm not sure whether he realises the negative impact that's actually having on the company and the brand by doing that without cooperation with the customer. All you have to do is offer the customer something extra, not take functionality away. All you have to do is explain to the customer what you're doing with it, how often it's occurring, and what benefit Mixergy are getting for it. You just have to be more honest and open and inclusive with the customer, and then you'd have all of those things. Where at the moment, I would honestly say, if you get your Mixergy tank, turn grid assist off. If you've got Mixergy tanks, turn it off. Because do they deserve it? The answer is no, they don't. They don't deserve the extra profit. Now, that's me being really stubborn, because they're apparently using that profit to help develop the software and develop the solutions going forward. So yes, what they're actually doing is wanting you to volunteer the usage of your system so that they get a benefit and they can grow the company. I sort of want to, because I like the idea of Mixergy and I like the idea of, and I want to be able to do that, but because of the way they're implementing it and because of the link with British Gas, it just makes me feel like it's wrong, and it makes me feel like I want to get rid of it. And I don't like that feeling. It's not very healthy. So is it just me? Is it just me being really grumpy? Or can you see and can you understand my concerns about this? What would you do? Would you turn grid assist off? Have you turned grid assist off? Let me know in the comments what you think. Did you even know that it was on all the time and what all these things were going on? One of the last things that I'm disappointed with, and again this is a big one and one that I continue to be disappointed with, is because I've turned grid assist off, so I'm not offering my tank to do these demand response events, I lose the AI capability with the tank. So the hot water tank has the ability to learn your usage of hot water, and you can set an automatic and AI part to the system to heat your hot water at the right time to the right level. So if you only use 60 litres a day, it'll only heat the equivalent of 60 litres a day and save you money and be really economical. And there are options to have super economical and normal economical, depending on how assertive and how aggressive you want to be. And that's absolutely great. That's what we want from this tank. It's an intelligent, smart tank. It's got some good AI. You can turn it on and it will self-heat as it wants to. Obviously it can't via the solar diverter because you can only heat when there's an excess of solar. So you can't use the AI for the PV diverter side. But on the boosting, for me in winter, if I was using the Mixergy side of things for boosting, then the AI would be brilliant. I could minimize my hot water being heated and it'd be done just in time using the timing for my electric tariff. Very smart, very clever, very good. And that's where a lot of the savings are. The less hot water you heat, the less energy you're using. But if I turn grid assist off, because I don't allow them to use demand response, they turn my AI off as well. And there's no reason for it. There's no absolute connect-on functionality that grid assist needs the AI or the AI needs grid assist. They are two separate things. So it's a deliberate design thing that to lose functionality, to take stuff away. Now that I find really, really bad because part of the ethos of Mixergy is saving energy. It's being green. It's part of the renewable team and environment. It's what they're interested in. And part of the AI is making those savings and reducing energy usage. So that's a key part of the product and a key part of the sell of the product, that you reduce energy and it helps the environment, it helps the grid, all these sort of things. So because I don't sign up to grid assist, it's like they're throwing their toys out of the pram and say, well, you can't have that feature then, can you? And why? Because it's actually meaning I can't make savings. So the tank's not delivering its purpose. The brand isn't helping customers reduce energy usage unless you sign up for grid assist. Again, I just really, really do not like that. So let's end the video on a positive. I can't believe I've been talking for 40 minutes now, and most of it has probably been negative at the end. I do recommend the tank. I do recommend that you buy a Mixergy tank. And I do still like the idea. If I went back and did it again, I would still buy the third-party diverter switch and use the Eddi. I'm still convinced that was the right way to do it. But I'm just disappointed at the design. I'm disappointed because it could and should be a lot better. And if I'd have known it all in advance, I wouldn't have been as upset. So I really do recommend the Mixergy tank. And it sounds odd for me to say that after being so negative for so many things. I just want to be clear about it. I like the technology, I like the tank, I like the Mixergy company and the team and how friendly they are. I like everything about it. I'm just disappointed that it should and could be better, and that hard push they have and how they do grid assist is just not the right way about engaging with customers and getting them to offer their systems for free or for some benefit that you can actually make a lot of profit in the future. I don't mind that you're going to do that. I don't mind you're going to make some profit. You just need to give more back to the customer. You need to recognize that the tank is the customer's, not yours. But I still recommend it. I still think it's brilliant. It's an improvement on the hot water tank and using the PV diverter that I had before. I have better hot water. Is it worth £2,200 getting rid of that tank that I had? Probably not. Are the savings that I'm going to make going to pay for that implementation? Probably not. But this month, heading towards winter, I've used 30 kilowatt hours less in energy going into my hot water than I did last year for the same time period. 30 kilowatt hours. So how much solar PV would I need during October, November, December to generate 30 kilowatt hours of extra energy? Then the hot water tank seems to be quite effective on a comparison to how could I generate the extra energy rather than how could I save that energy. So just me saving 30 kilowatt hours actually makes it quite plausible in the winter. That is a valid saving, but there are more savings I can make as well, because if I could use the AI and if I manually adjust how I use the tank, then I can make more savings. For example, if I run the tank so it becomes quite empty towards the end of the day, and I've done that here in this example, then the amount of heat loss that I have of the hot water throughout the night until I'm ready to reheat is negligible. It's virtually nothing. In fact, I'll put the actual details on the screen. Whereas if I had my hot water tank hot because I'd refilled it with excess solar energy or for whatever reason, then the heat loss would be significantly more. So the lower the level of hot water in the tank, the less heat loss that I'm going to have. And it is a significant difference between the two. So if I run the hot water tank not full all the time, like I have been previously with the old tank and the Mixergy Eddi, instead of running it full all the time and at temperature all the time, if I ran it at 10, 20, 30% more often, because for a shower, for hot water, for everything we're doing, we don't need more than 10% for each individual usage of the tank. So I could make a lot more savings through heat loss by running the tank at a lower percentage level. That is where the AI should come in really, really handy. And obviously I can't use it because I don't turn grid assist on. I hope I change. I hope I'm given reason to change and to turn it back on. But at the moment, I don't feel happy to. I don't think they warrant it. I don't think they're doing the right things, taking functionality away from me, trying to coerce me into after-sale, aftercare products, and affecting grid assist with all those things. At the moment, I'm just not in love with that side of it, so I'm not doing it. Stubborn? Yeah, I'm afraid I am. But anyway, there it is. There's my honest view of why I'm happy and the joys of the Mixergy tank and how it works. And yes, there's lots more functionality I could show you. I'm sure Mixergy will be disappointed I haven't shown you everything. But then, you know, there's the woes on it as well. And I wanted to be honest about those, that it's mostly related to the PV diverter switch and also just grid assist. If you don't mind and you're happy to leave grid assist on and you don't mind that you haven't really signed up for British Gas using your data, then you won't have those problems. And if you don't use the third-party diverter switch, then you won't have the issues that I have with the tank not being digital as well. So there's a lot of good reason to be very positive about the tank. The last thing that I'll say, just before I sign off, is in the terms for the warranty with the Mixergy tank, it says that I can't use the heat pump coil option, which is an added option you can add to the tank, to have a coil at the bottom of the tank, and that heats from a heat pump. Now that would be a great way to do it. If I was installing the Octopus Energy heat pump solution, then I would want a Mixergy tank, which they don't offer. Octopus don't offer it, but I'd install it to start with because it's the best tank, and then you could have a heat pump efficiency of heating your hot water with great COP values. So that would be the right way to go. But the Mixergy terms and conditions, the warranty, says that I can't install the coil because I have a hard water area. They would insist that I had to have a water softener before the warranty wouldn't be affected on the hot water tank. So I can't have a heat pump coil on a hot water tank without a water softener. Now it's interesting that Octopus didn't say that, but Mixergy are. So is this Mixergy? Is it just an issue with them, or is this an issue with all heat pumps? And because the coil's at the bottom of the tank, they're not as effective and they're not as good, and they're at risk of all the limescale building up and affecting the performance or functionality of that coil at the bottom. So it's something that I learned from the process, that I probably wouldn't have been able to have a heat pump coil on my hot water tank anyway, because I don't have a water softener. And yeah, that could be more thousands of pounds to implement one. Anyway, there you go. That's the last thing to say about it. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I wasn't too negative. I just want to be honest. I just want to describe what's great, what I really like about it, and the things that I don't. And I want to qualify that so that you can understand why I'm not happy. And I might just be being stupid. I might just be being stubborn, but at least you can understand that. And at least that I'm not just ranting on about it for the sake about it. If I'd have done that to start with, I think it would have been a rant. So I just wanted to give it long enough. I wanted to talk to Mixergy about it. The bad thing about that discussion I had with Peter, he told me that he didn't really know that that functionality had been taken away, the AI functionality, which makes me wonder, well, how much in control of it is he? Is it a third party that's doing the development? Why didn't he know? And why hasn't he switched it back on for me? Why hasn't there been some customer aftercare saying, okay, Nigel, yeah, you're absolutely right. We shouldn't be turning that off. Here, have it on. I can only believe the reason why they haven't done that is because if they turn it on for me, then they've got to turn it on for all other customers. So that's just proving to me that they are deliberately removing that functionality from customers. And it's their plan to do that. It's not by accident. So yeah, not happy again. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Take care. See you again soon. More videos, electric cars, solar panels, Mixergy tanks as well. That will have to be in my energy updates as well now. And how much hot water have I been using? And how much savings have we been making using that Mixergy tank? So yes, this October's energy update will include Mixergy data. So I'll talk about that some more. See you again soon for more videos. Bye for now. Sorry it's a really long one. Needed to be.